The Danish monarchy is walking a tightrope, and the stakes have never been higher. King Frederik and Queen Mary are orchestrating what could be the most dramatic transformation of a European royal house in generations, but every move they make could either secure their legacy or spark a constitutional crisis that would shake the very foundations of one of the world's oldest continuous monarchies. Behind the palace walls, whispers of controversy are growing louder, and the Danish people are beginning to ask uncomfortable questions about their new sovereigns. When Frederik ascended to the throne in January 2024 following his mother Queen Margrethe's shocking abdication, few could have predicted the whirlwind of change that would follow. The new king and his Australian-born Queen Mary haven't just inherited a crown, they've inherited centuries of tradition, protocol, and public expectation. But what they're doing with that inheritance is causing ripples that extend far beyond the borders of Denmark, and the consequences of their modernization agenda are becoming impossible to ignore. The transformation began almost immediately after the coronation ceremony, which itself became the first source of controversy. The coronation of Frederik X and Mary of Denmark has been one of the most expensive in the recent history of the Danish monarchy. There were 6.5 million Danish kroner invested in what many viewed as an unnecessarily lavish affair during times of economic uncertainty. This wasn't just a celebration, it was a statement of intent, a signal that the new royal couple intended to do things differently, regardless of the cost. But the spending didn't stop there. The controversy over this form of communication arose after it became known that there was a 15% increase in the royal house's expenses. This dramatic spike in royal expenditure has raised eyebrows across Danish society, with critics pointing to what they see as a disconnect between the monarch's public image and their private spending habits. The increase comes at a time when many Danish citizens are grappling with rising living costs and economic pressures, making the royal family's financial choices a matter of intense public scrutiny. The criticism has been particularly sharp regarding their travel arrangements and lifestyle choices. They are accused of excessive public spending on travel and events, and a noticeable reduction in official acts. This allegation strikes at the heart of what many consider to be the fundamental bargain between monarchy and democracy in the modern age. The royal family receives public funding and constitutional privilege in exchange for dedicated service to the nation and its people. When that balance appears to shift, it creates a crisis of legitimacy that can threaten the entire institution. The modernization efforts extend far beyond spending patterns and into the very structure of royal tradition. In November 2024, the royal court announced that the king had decided to phase out the system of granting companies royal warrants, which has been extant in Denmark since the 19th century. This seemingly technical change represents something much more significant: the dismantling of centuries-old practices that have bound the monarchy to Danish commercial and cultural life. Royal warrants aren't just business arrangements, they're symbols of continuity and tradition that connect the crown to everyday Danish life. The decision to eliminate royal warrants sends a clear message that Frederik and Mary are willing to break with established customs when they believe change is necessary. But this approach to reform has created tension with traditionalists who argue that the monarchy's strength lies precisely in its ability to maintain continuity across generations. The question becomes whether modernization enhances or undermines the monarchy's fundamental purpose and legitimacy. King Frederik's approach to royal duties has been markedly different from his mother's methodical and traditional style. Frederik X embraces progressive values, environmental advocacy, and transparency, setting him apart from traditional monarchs. Furthermore, he focuses on modernizing the monarchy by engaging with younger generations, supporting sustainability, and speaking openly about mental health. While these priorities align with contemporary Danish values, they also represent a significant departure from the carefully neutral stance that monarchs have traditionally maintained on politically sensitive issues. The challenge is that progressive values and environmental advocacy are inherently political positions, even when presented in nonpartisan terms. Every stance the king takes on climate change, mental health, or social issues has the potential to alienate segments of the Danish population who hold different views. Traditional monarchs maintained their legitimacy by remaining above the political fray, but Frederik's approach risks turning the crown into just another voice in contemporary political debates. Queen Mary's role in this transformation has been equally controversial and equally significant. Her Australian background, which was once seen as bringing fresh perspective to the Danish royal family, is now being scrutinized in the context of the couple's modernization agenda. Critics suggest that her outsider status may have contributed to a misunderstanding of Danish royal traditions and the delicate balance required to maintain public support for the monarchy. Queen Mary's credibility since becoming royal makes real change according to recent assessments of her impact on various social causes. Her advocacy work, particularly in mental health awareness, has given her a platform to influence Danish society in ways that extend far beyond traditional royal patronages. But this increased visibility and influence come with risks. Every public statement and appearance is now analyzed for its political implications and potential to create controversy. The couple's handling of their children's futures has become another flashpoint in the modernization debate. The Danish royal house has made it clear that, by her own decision, the youngest in the family is leaving for a boarding school 3 hours from Copenhagen, while Crown Prince Christian completes been admitted to the lieutenant's training course. The training starts in early August 2025 and lasts 1 year plus a subsequent period of practical service as a platoon leader. These educational choices reflect the royal couple's desire to give their children more normal upbringings, but they also represent a departure from traditional royal education patterns. The decision to send Princess Josephine to boarding school away from Copenhagen has been particularly controversial, with some interpreting it as the royal family distancing itself from the Danish capital and, by extension, from the Danish people. Critics argue that a royal family that doesn't fully embrace Danish institutions and traditions cannot expect to maintain the trust and support of the Danish public. The controversies surrounding Frederik and Mary have intensified as their first year of reign has progressed. Frederik, upon ascending the throne, faces the difficult challenge of matching the legacy of his mother, Queen Margrethe II. However, the public perception of the new monarch hasn't been the desired one so far. Many believe that he'll need time and gestures to earn a place in the history of Danish royalty that matches his mother's respected position. Queen Margrethe II reigned for over 50 years and became synonymous with stability, dignity, and Danish cultural identity. Her unexpected abdication in favor of Frederik was itself a modernizing move that broke with tradition, but it also created enormous pressure on the new king to prove himself worthy of the crown. Every misstep is magnified because it's compared not just to abstract royal ideals but to the concrete example of his highly regarded mother. The pressure has been particularly intense because Queen Margrethe's health issues are directly affecting them. Despite their coronation, the former queen's ongoing presence in royal life creates a complex dynamic where Frederik and Mary must establish their own authority while remaining respectful of the woman who voluntarily stepped aside for them. This delicate balance becomes even more challenging when their modernization efforts are implicitly criticized as departures from Margrethe's more traditional approach. The media scrutiny has been relentless, with every aspect of the royal couple's public and private life subject to intense examination. The Photoshop controversy from their official portraits highlighted how even seemingly minor issues can explode into major public relations disasters. Frederik and Mary published their first official gala portrait last month. However, royal watchers accused the couple of photoshopping. While the allegations were ultimately refuted, the incident demonstrated the level of skepticism and scrutiny that now surrounds every aspect of their public presentation. This kind of intense media attention creates a feedback loop where every attempt to modernize royal communications and presentation becomes subject to criticism and conspiracy theories. The royal couple finds themselves in the impossible position of needing to embrace contemporary communication methods while simultaneously meeting traditional expectations for royal dignity and authenticity. The broader European royal context makes the Danish situation even more precarious. Monarchies across Europe are facing questions about their relevance and legitimacy in the 21st century. The British royal family has weathered numerous scandals and controversies, while Spanish and Swedish royals have faced their own challenges regarding public support and institutional relevance. In this environment, any misstep by Frederik and Mary risks contributing to broader anti-monarchist sentiment that could spread across royal houses. The economic argument for monarchy has become increasingly difficult to sustain as royal households face pressure to justify their public funding. The 15% increase in Danish royal expenses comes at a time when other European royal families are being forced to cut costs and reduce their public footprints. If the Danish royals are seen as moving in the opposite direction, it could provide ammunition for republican movements not just in Denmark but across Europe. The constitutional implications of the current controversies extend beyond public relations concerns. In Denmark's parliamentary democracy, the monarchy's legitimacy depends on maintaining broad public support and staying above partisan political debates. If Frederik and Mary's modernization efforts are perceived as politically motivated or culturally insensitive, it could trigger constitutional discussions about the role and future of the monarchy that would be difficult to control once started. The couple's international profile adds another layer of complexity to their domestic challenges. Queen Mary's Australian background and the couple's global connections mean that their actions are scrutinized not just by Danish media but by international observers who may have different expectations and interpretations of royal behavior. This global attention can amplify domestic controversies and create additional pressure for the couple to maintain perfect public behavior. The environmental advocacy that King Frederik has embraced, while popular with many Danes, also creates potential for future controversies. Climate change and environmental policy are inherently political issues, and the king's prominent stance on these matters could become problematic if political winds shift or if his advocacy is seen as influencing government policy in ways that exceed appropriate royal influence. The mental health advocacy that both Frederik and Mary have championed represents another area where good intentions could lead to unexpected controversies. While mental health awareness is generally supported across Danish society, the royal couple's involvement in these issues means that any misstep or insensitive comment could be magnified into a major scandal that undermines their credibility on the very issues they care most about. The timing of many of their modernization efforts has been particularly unfortunate. According to Bill Bladet, Frederik and Mary's return to Denmark was scheduled for the 13th of July, but the royal couple chose to extend their stay abroad by a few days. The Danish newspaper adds that the pair have extended their vacation again. These extended vacations, while normal for any family, take on different meaning when undertaken by publicly funded royals during periods of economic uncertainty and public scrutiny. The challenge facing King Frederik and Queen Mary is that modernization inevitably involves risk, but the margin for error when you're wearing a crown is essentially zero. Every innovation, every departure from tradition, every attempt to make the monarchy more relevant and accessible creates opportunities for criticism and controversy. The couple must navigate between the expectations of younger Danes who want to see a modern, engaged royal family and older Danes who value the continuity and tradition that monarchy represents. The international dimension of their challenges cannot be understated. Royal families across Europe are watching the Danish experiment in modernization because its success or failure will influence their own approaches to contemporary challenges. If Frederik and Mary succeed in creating a more modern, relevant monarchy that maintains public support, it could provide a template for other royal houses. If they fail, it could accelerate republican sentiment across Europe. The media landscape has fundamentally changed since Queen Margrethe began her reign, and Frederik and Mary must operate in an environment of constant scrutiny, instant communication, and viral controversies that can explode within hours. Traditional royal communication strategies, developed for print newspapers and evening television news, are inadequate for an era of social media, 24-hour news cycles, and global interconnectedness. The couple's approach to their children's upbringing reflects broader tensions within their modernization agenda. They want to give their children normal childhoods and educational opportunities, but every decision they make about schooling, activities, and public appearances becomes a statement about their values and priorities. The decision to send Princess Josephine to boarding school may have been made for perfectly reasonable personal reasons, but it's inevitably interpreted through the lens of royal duty and Danish identity. As we move deeper into 2025, the pressure on King Frederik and Queen Mary continues to intensify. Their modernization efforts have created expectations for continued reform and innovation, but each new initiative carries the risk of triggering fresh controversies. The couple finds themselves caught between the need to prove their relevance to contemporary Danish society and the requirement to maintain the dignity and continuity that monarchy represents. The stakes couldn't be higher. If Frederik and Mary succeed in their modernization efforts while maintaining public support and constitutional legitimacy, they could secure the Danish monarchy for another generation and provide a model for other royal houses facing similar challenges. If they fail, they could trigger a constitutional crisis that ends over 1,000 years of Danish monarchical tradition. The next few years will be crucial in determining whether their bold vision for a modern monarchy can coexist with the traditional expectations and constitutional requirements that define royal institutions. The Danish people are watching, European republicans are waiting for any sign of weakness, and the international community is observing an unprecedented experiment in royal modernization. Every public appearance, every policy decision, every family choice made by King Frederik and Queen Mary carries weight far beyond its immediate context. They are not just managing a royal household, they are stewarding an institution that connects modern Denmark to its historical identity while attempting to make it relevant for future generations. The question that will define their reign is whether modernization and tradition can successfully coexist within a constitutional monarchy, or whether the tensions between old and new, between royal privilege and democratic accountability, between Danish tradition and global modernity, will ultimately prove irreconcilable. The answer will shape not just the future of the Danish monarchy but the prospects for monarchical institutions across Europe and beyond. What do you think? Will King Frederik and Queen Mary's modernization gamble pay off? Or are they risking everything for changes that could destroy the very institution they're trying to save? Don't forget to like this video if you found these royal revelations shocking, subscribe for more explosive royal investigations, share with anyone who follows European royalty, and comment below with your thoughts on whether Frederik and Mary are saving or destroying the Danish monarchy.